continue for Terrebonne, Lafourche, and Lower Jefferson. So hurricane force winds are going to be most likely in here. That's the new center line, taking it right up through St. Mary Parish and up through the river parishes. And I still want to say that there are several of our high-resolution models that bring this storm further into Terrebonne Parish with the core closer to the city of New Orleans and up through the North Shore. That would bring a bigger wind impact to the metro area. So this latest update does bring stronger winds across our area. Let me show you one of our high-resolution models that is showing that scenario very similar to what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. Here we go tomorrow, or rather this evening and into tonight, we still just have passing showers. There is a tornado risk with all this. We'll be here tracking that risk through tonight with some of these outer bands. Here we are at 3 a.m., some heavy tropical rains moving in, and then once we get into tomorrow morning, tropical storm conditions moving into the coastal areas fairly early on, and then tropical storm conditions approaching the metro once we get into the early afternoon. So this model has the center coming on shore right around St. Mary Parish, maybe into Terrebonne Parish. This would bring the core of those winds over the area. Very heavy rain on the north side of the storm, very dry on the back side of the storm. Now, while it's dry on the back side of the storm, we still think there's going to be some fairly impressive wind gusts, even if it's not raining. So one of those weird lopsided systems that comes in, but it's got winds wrapping all the way around it. By tomorrow night, it's moving on out. So once again, we're watching this storm to see how it intensifies today. How quickly it intensifies today will determine how strong it is once it gets to our coast. So the wind shear and dry air today are not a huge factor. It's running over warm Gulf waters. We think it's under fairly decent conditions to intensify all day and even into tonight. That's why we think it could make a run at a Category 2 storm. Now, once it gets close to our coast, watch the intensity as these winds start to come down because of wind shear and dry air. And so as that storm sweeps over the area, yes, it's still packing a very, very heavy punch with strong winds. Hopefully it is weakening. I want to slow this down and give you a very detailed look at some of these wind gusts. So here we are tomorrow afternoon. The storm begins to make landfall. This is pretty in line with what the Hurricane Center is saying right now. You can see there winds, hurricane force right off the coast. This is at 1 to 2 o'clock. This is when conditions will probably be at their worst in Terrebonne. And this has the storm coming in more into Terrebonne Parish. So winds will start to be gusty in the early afternoon. The worst winds will be moving in during the afternoon hours and into your evening. Now this shows you a scenario where the core of this hurricane coming in around Terrebonne as a Category 1, strong Category 1 at that. We could have those wind gusts approaching 90 miles an hour for areas around Houma, maybe in Grand Isle. And if this plays out, you have that core right over the city of New Orleans, bringing in those winds gusting. You can see there's that potential for 50 to 70 mile per hour winds across the New Orleans metro by Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening, and then once again it's moving on out fairly quickly. Now this specific model is a little bit further to the east than some of the others. Either way though, I do see a scenario where we see that core winds traveling over the area, whether it's New Orleans or the river parishes or maybe closer up to the North Shore. We've got to wait and see how this plays out and how it exactly approaches the coast. But it shows you that this trend brings in a bigger wind problem for our area, meaning more power outages. And a 70-mile-an-hour wind is going to cause power outages. Now, this is not an Ida. I know a lot of people down in the bayou parishes are getting a little nervous with this. I do hope you're taking it serious, but this is not 150 to 200-mile-an-hour winds. It is far, far off from that. With that being said, we are likely going to see power outages. If you are in a trailer, I know some people are still recovering from Ida in a FEMA trailer. Maybe you're in temporary housing. You don't want to stay in those for this storm. These types of winds will roll those things, and it's very, very dangerous. So find somewhere else to be. Hopefully there's some shelters you can go to if you need to. Now, one of the upgrades, we do have storm surge warnings now for the entire area. This includes around the lake. This includes our entire coast and over into South Mississippi. Updating our storm surge numbers, really the only change we're seeing with these are 3 to 5 feet now for coastal Mississippi into eastern St. Bernard Parish. We're expecting 3 to 5 feet in the lake, especially for parts of the North Shore. And then you can see Barataria Bay still hanging on to 4 to 7 feet. 5 to 10 feet, though, into Terrebonne Bay. And so our biggest storm surge problems are likely going to be right here near Morgan City, into St. Mary Parish, where the Atchafalaya dumps into the Gulf. Also down into Terrebonne Bay, Cocodrie, Chauvin could see 5 to 10 feet of inundation. And Grand Isle and up into Lafitte, 4 to 7 feet. I was just talking to our Meg Ferris, and we were talking about the mayor of Lafitte, talking about how everything is so saturated and we have so much water left over from last week's rainfall that the water is already elevated. And so this is only going to exacerbate the problem with more water coming in. So a big concern down there. Please be taking this seriously in Lafitte. I know it says only a Category 1, but 7 feet of inundation is a possibility, and that is something we want you to take seriously. So that's what we're looking at with storm surge. Now this is something interesting. This is our latest high resolution model that just came in, and it is showing a corridor, and it's been showing this for several model runs. So this has got our attention. There is likely going to be a core of very, very prolonged heavy tropical rains. It's not going to take up much real estate, but where that core of that storm moves over, we will likely see 8 to 12 inches of rain. If you were watching earlier this morning, we have that corridor closer to Baton Rouge and down through Morgan City because it had the storm coming in a little further to the west. Now that it has the storm coming in more right here, we could see that axis of very heavy rain over parts of southeast Louisiana. So a very close call with not a whole lot of rain and a lot of rain. So there is that flood potential that we will need to keep a very close eye on. And with all that wrapped in a bow, there is a tornado risk. It's a landfalling system, some dry air is wrapping into it. Wouldn't be shocking to see a couple of tornadoes form with this tropical system approaching our area. So if you are just joining us, I want to do a really quick recap, just show you the cone with the latest track before we get back to Brandon, and we've got some reporters out in the field getting you prepared for this as well. The impacts are mostly felt tomorrow, but we do have rain today. The impact will be mostly during the afternoon on Wednesday for New Orleans and the North Shore. It will start in the morning hours down here on the South Shore and along the coast. That's where we're expecting the winds to pick up faster. Could be a Category 2 at landfall. There's the center moving into parts of our area and then sweeping over us as we go in through the afternoon. And luckily it is moving, so we'll have it out of here by late Wednesday night and probably more so out of here by early Thursday. That is the latest as of 10 o'clock, Brandon.
All right, Peyton, thank you for breaking that down with us. And with that eastern movement there, low-lying areas of Terrebonne Parish, there's a mandatory evacuation call there. They're urging residents to get out as Francine makes its way through the Gulf. Schools are closed tomorrow and Thursday in Terrebonne. A lot to get to with our Leah McNeil. She joins us live with how officials are preparing. She's joining us now with the parish president. Leah.
Hey, Brendan, that's right. Yeah, we do have some pretty major updates from Parish President Bajaran right now. I'm just going to bring him right in to just give us those updates. You mentioned that with the latest update from the National Weather Service, you guys are now moving up the time for that mandatory evacuation, making it earlier to open up the shelter, right?
Yes, because when it comes to us closing our system, the last thing we can close is the roller gates on the road. And so the levee district has decided to do that at 7 p.m. So that means we're going to push our evacuation up to 6 p.m. and we're actually opening our shelter at Municipal Auditorium at 6 p.m. also.
And this is Zone 1, correct? So everywhere that is south of the levee, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Everything south of the levee system, because we're looking at a 5 to 10 foot surge. You know, you look at 10 foot, that's above your head. You know, we want to make sure that our residents are not in the path of that storm surge.
And I know you all have 17 different sandbag locations out there, including one where folks can get pre-bagged sandbags for the elderly and those who are not able to bag that, correct? Will those be open throughout the duration of the evening?
Yes, we're going to shut that down at some point tonight. We're still looking at that. But yeah, you got up at the South Campus on Grand Canyon Road, residents that have issues and need assistance can get up to 15 bags.
Gotcha. And we're talking about, again, Zone 1 that applies to those folks for that mandatory evacuation. If anyone has issues finding out where exactly they are in those zones, what should they do?
If they go to our Facebook page and our web page, we have a map. You can enter your address and it'll tell you exactly what zone you live in.
So we were talking, guys, a little bit earlier. He's been parish president for 8 months now. You've really made an emphasis for technology, making sure people have access to this information at their fingertips. Tell me, what have you all been doing here? I know we've seen a lot of officials coming in and out of the emergency preparedness building here. What have those talks been looking like with you all still making sure you're getting out that information to everyone? Yeah,
we're tracking it. You know, we're getting information to those that, you know, as again, we're adjusting our sheltering so to make sure that everything flows with that. What it looks like for if people need food or any other supplies. As we go to close the roller gates and put sandbags on the road in Montague, we're going to go down those bayous. We're going to let residents know, hey, you know, this is final call. We need to really get moving. But just really, you know, communication, transparency, and give information out as soon as we get it in.
Absolutely. And lastly, anything people need to know who are going to go to that shelter of last resort that'll be opening earlier tonight instead of tomorrow morning?
Yeah, they need to bring their own supplies and everything, everything they would want to sleep with or everything they would need to be out of their house at least a day, maybe more. Just make sure they bring all that in. And if you need assistance getting to that, we have transportation that's going to happen once our brush route's finished with our normal transit system. And so we want to make sure that everybody cleans up debris, not only from it flying around, but also getting caught up in a drainage system. So you should be tidying that up. Get your property tidied up and then get your family safe. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely, it always is. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you all are busy, so I will let you go. As you heard it, guys, right here, they are moving up the time for that mandatory evacuation for Zone 1. So you want to make sure you are out of your homes if you are in that area south of the levee by 7 o'clock tonight, correct?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. tonight. So 6 p.m. tonight, if you are in Zone 1 in that mandatory evacuation zone, you need to be out of your home. If you do need assistance, you will find more information about the numbers to call over on the parish's Facebook page. For now, reporting live in Terrebonne Parish, Leah McNeil, WWL Louisiana.
Leah, real quick while you're there and the parish president is still with you, I do want to ask you if you can pass on to him. A couple weeks ago, we ran a story just about concerns regarding the integrity of the power grid, the power station there partially inoperational because of damage from Ida. What is President Bergeron hearing about the integrity of the grid there with power being brought in from the New Orleans area? Are they okay with everything?
Yeah, Brandon, energy, the power grid is always a concern. We were actually just talking about that before we came to you all live. Parish President, tell me, what's the status of the grid right now? I know we've had some issues in the past. Where's that stand now?
So we're about 25% on our system-wide repairs. We had about 847 repairs post-Ida. Just getting through that with FEMA because we had to get through insurance to get the funding from FEMA to get it done. So that's something we're concerned about, but we are making sure we have extra crews available. So as soon as we're able to get out and about, we're going to be repairing lines and getting trees out of the road and everything as soon as we can.
And as far as this storm coming in right now, do you think it'll hold off? Or are you still worried about the potential for power going out?
I think there's always that potential. We have a feeder line that feeds Terrebonne Parish through energy. So if that goes down, we do stand the chance of having no power in our parish. We do have some temporary generators that we're going to make sure we use for essential services and then get things repaired as soon as possible.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much again for joining us. Again, guys, we'll have all the information for you over on our website, WWLTV.com. Back to y'all in the studio.
All right, great reporting, Leah. We do thank you for the update. In Terrebonne Parish, as Leah mentioned, some 17 locations for you to get sandbags, self-serve. Also, other parishes across our area, there are opportunities, multiple choices in New Orleans for you. Mentioned Terrebonne, also Lafourche, St. Tammany, St. John, and Plaquemines Parish. Go to our website, WWLTV.com. Got a full list of sandbag locations. It's an active list that we continue to update. Also have a list of locations in Hancock County, Mississippi as well. You are being asked in most of these situations, however, to bring your own shovel as these locations are self-served. And all the rain that we have received over the last couple of weeks appears to have contributed to a sinkhole opening up right now in Lakeview. Winston Reed, he's live for us near the corner of Fillmore and Louisville with the details on this. Winston, we can see crews working behind you. We can also see a pretty gaping hole.
Brandon, it's really hard to miss this massive hole that sits at the corner of Fillmore and Louisville. You can see how deep it is. It's the top of that hole almost reaching the top of the heads of those crew members that are standing right inside of it. And what I'm told is that a leak and a pipe failure caused this sinkhole to form earlier today. Crews right there working to fix that leak, get that issue resolved, and I'm told that it'll take about a couple of hours for that sinkhole to complete. Sewage and Water Board here on scene. And Sewage and Water Board also said that they have extra staff and crew members prepared for the Tropical Storm Francine this week. So that's really coming in handy, having these crew members here ready to mitigate and resolve this issue. Again, take a couple of hours for this leak and the pipe failure to be resolved. However long it takes the sinkhole itself to be filled, probably a little longer than that. So if you're driving in the area, you might want to reroute yourself. If you're near Louisville Street, you're definitely not going to make it down this way. But as you can see here, massive hole crews working on that sinkhole, and should be a couple of hours before it's all resolved and taken care of. And we're going to work to see how long it takes for the hole itself to be filled. Reporting live in Lakeview, Winston Reed, WWL Louisiana.
All right, Winston, thank you. This just in, Governor Jeff Landry issuing a mandatory evacuation order for those low-lying areas of Jefferson Parish. We're talking about those who live outside of the levee in Grand Isle, Lafitte, other low-lying areas there. Again, that word just coming in from Governor Jeff Landry, a mandatory call to evacuate for those on those low-lying, unprotected areas of Jefferson Parish. So we're beginning to see that as the storm system and the forecast has moved a little more east. With that, let's get back over to Payton, who's got the very latest.
Yeah, and you know, you're talking about evacuations. This is why we are expecting up to 10 feet of surge for areas around Terrebonne Bay, 4 to 7 feet for those areas in Lower Jefferson. That includes Grand Isle. But remember, that also includes getting up into the Lafitte area. It comes up into the Barataria Bay there, and you get water rising. And we saw that during Ida with significant water rise. Elsewhere, 3 to 5 feet for the Mississippi coast and over into the lake. So surge worse the closer you get to the center. Just a debrief here on, if you missed it off the top, our 10 a.m. update. We still have a tropical storm. What's interesting about this storm, though, and it's very funky looking, you've got your center here and all this displaced storms. The pressure dropped to 988. And remember, when the pressure is dropping, the storm is strengthening. It usually takes a little bit for the winds to respond. So the lower the pressure, the faster the winds. I think with the next update, our winds will be stronger, therefore, because the pressure has been dropping. So overall, the storm continues to show signs of strengthening, and you can see that on satellite here with showers and storms continuing to flare up. Now, will this rapidly intensify? That's to be seen. We do think there's a chance of that happening for today, and with that, we have it becoming a hurricane at some point today and then making landfall in our area tomorrow around the middle of the day as a hurricane. Now, right now, the National Hurricane Center says it could very well be a Category 2 in its track right in here. So that means the Category 2 is a possibility in our area. That cone now centered more over St. Mary Parish, putting us all on the east side in southeast Louisiana. And then by Wednesday night, it's moving on out. I want to show you a couple of things. What you're looking at here is the chance of seeing tropical storm force winds as Francine moves in based on the current track, and also the timing of what is most likely when you start to see tropical storm force winds. Along our coast, the most likely scenario is probably close to 8 to 10 a.m. or so. This little line here is the 8 a.m. tropical wind location, and then spreading out over the area. For the metro, it'll probably be around the lunchtime to 2 o'clock hour when we start to see tropical storm force winds. That's the most likely scenario. But if the storm moves faster, this is the earliest reasonable time that tropical storm force winds could start. So this is if the storm speeds up. We could start to see tropical storm force winds along our coast, maybe between 2 and 3 a.m., with it spreading into the New Orleans area before lunchtime. So this would be if the storm speeds up. But right now, the most likely scenario is morning hours along the coast, around lunchtime in the city. That's when tropical storms winds increase, and then they'll continue to grow and get stronger as we go throughout the afternoon. Overall, our parish by parish impacts here, we have been watching this very closely, and we may update these numbers, but right now we're still thinking widespread 50 to 60 mile an hour winds gusting on the North Shore. We may change that to 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. Rain 3 to 6 inches with isolated 8 to 12 inches. The surge is going to be slightly higher up here on the North Shore as well at 3 to 5 feet. So we're going to go in and work on these numbers and get them updated for you. But right now, certainly some strong winds. That is likely going to lead to some power outages. And that is, just something you have to deal with when you've got a landfalling storm. At least a Category 1, it's still going to cause power outages across the area. We do still have that storm surge warning. It now includes a big chunk of the area, including around the lake has a storm surge warning. This is going to be for outside any levee protection areas. We have a storm surge warning now for the Mississippi coast. Storm surge warning continues down here in the bayou parishes as your water will likely grow and get higher and higher as that storm makes landfall. The highest storm surge is likely going to happen around the early afternoon as the storm makes landfall. Now, the good news is that we do expect this storm surge, and at least the tides when storm surge happens, will be at low tide. So hopefully that helps us out. But I want to give you a closer look on some of the inundation we could see based on the current track. And once again, the track is currently centered over Morgan City and up into the Assumption Parish area. We could still see this track slide further to the east. That would not surprise me based on some of the high resolution models I've been looking at. But either way, water is going to be quite high. You can see there in the orange Over 7 feet is a possibility right down here in lower Terrebonne in the marshy areas. Also into Terrebonne Bay, you start to get some high water. And then you can see it starts to drop off as you get into Barataria Bay, but we could still see up to 7 feet of inundation for some areas around Barataria Bay and maybe going up into parts of Lafitte there. Once you get into parts of eastern St. Bernard, you can see there are some hot spots there. These low-lying areas could see water rise as high as 5 feet. Around Lake Bourne, Venetian Isles, you're likely going to have water over the roads. Over in South Mississippi, Waveland, Bay St. Louis, back into the bay there, you're going to have some higher water. And then your winds are going to pile water up onto the east bank of Plaquemines. Now, I don't want to overlook the lake, because what's going to happen here is with the storm coming in, your winds, let's say the storm's currently, it'll be sitting about right here. So your winds are going to be doing this across the area. The winds will be pushing water up into the western and northwest side of Lake Pontchartrain, specifically talking about the Tangipahoa River, the Tchefuncte, these rivers leading into, that water is going to be up to about 5 feet higher than normal at its height. So if you live along the Mandeville Lakefront, if you live down here in Tangipahoa Parish, the water will be higher than normal as that surge comes in Wednesday. Probably start to rise Wednesday morning, but Wednesday afternoon into Wednesday evening, we do think the water is going to be quite high. And then as the storm lifts away, you're still going to have a south wind there, so the surge is going to be slow to go down on the North Shore. So if you do live in those flood-prone areas in St. Tammany or in Tangipahoa Parish, the waters are likely to be high all the way into Thursday. It's not going to go down very, very quickly, but certainly some nuisance flooding there for the lakefront on the North Shore as well. We're going to be watching for that heavy rain potential. This is what's got my attention. Now, widespread, we think we're probably going to see closer to 3 to 6 for everyone. At least I can say we can guarantee about 3 to 6 inches. But we do think there's going to be this corridor of very, very heavy rainfall. And what's happening here is as that storm moves inland, the track of this model takes it right over the area. The northern side is going to just have a constant area of heavy rain. The southern side is going to be drier. That's why the totals are lower down here. But as that north side streams across the area, you're going to have hours and hours of tropical downpours, and that's going to add up, maybe up to a foot or so, and this model is being very aggressive, showing some up to 15 inches. So take this with a grain of salt, the actual numbers where they're placed out on the town. What this shows you is that the storm is capable of producing very heavy rain up to these totals in certain areas. If you flip back to the model run before this, we had higher totals out here, but it shows you that it's model's picking up on something if it's showing it every single time. It's just in a slightly different spot every single time. And that's what we expect with models. We expect them to jump around some, but when they show a consistent area of a foot of rainfall, that is something that grabs your attention and something you certainly want to watch out for. So our 10 a.m. update here, we don't have a hurricane yet. We will probably have a hurricane at some point today. The way it looks like it's strengthening right now, the core of the storm is really starting to get its act together. It's still fairly far away. I mean, it's over 425 miles away from Morgan City, but here's the deal. It's speeding up. It's finally making that north-northeast turn, and so it was traveling northwest yesterday, slowed down this morning, and here we go. We've got a northeast movement, and that takes it up to the Louisiana coast with landfall expected into tomorrow morning, and into tomorrow afternoon is when landfall is expected. And we do think during its time right here over the Gulf, it's going to be strengthening, at least for today, and then that wind shear and dry air kick in tomorrow afternoon and hopefully start to weaken it as it makes landfall and moves inland. Brandon.
Thank you with that. While we have you up, Payton, I just want to ask you real quick, looking at the storm path, looking at the 10 o'clock numbers, you had forecast during the morning show that the storm was looking to move a little further east, so it seems to be in line with what you forecast here. As we do await the next update a little later today, do you anticipate more of an eastern movement?
You know, what was so interesting that caught our attention this morning, not only the models, but let me zoom in here. Do you see where the track went from there to, it did the weird little spinny thing?
Sure.
So what happened here, the storm weakened considerably last night. The Hurricane Center was thinking, okay, the center might be here. Well, then the plane flew through and found, no, the center is further east.
Okay.
And so when you plug that into all of our models, they say, wait a minute, the center's somewhere else. So this is going to have a compounding effect down the road. And that's why we saw the east shift. Now, there are several high-resolution models, and these are important. These high-resolution models we use nowadays, they're amazing, and we've only been using them a couple of years now. They're very new, and they have shown that this core of this hurricane could come closer than what the actual Hurricane Center line is showing right now. So it's a great reminder that that line The chance of that hurricane following that line exactly, that's not very high. I mean, it's just simply not how it works. It's going to wobble around some, and you get a little wobble into the metro area, then you've got the higher winds coming into the metro. We think this is going to probably be a Category 1. Most likely scenario is a Category 1 at landfall, but we always just say prepare for a category higher, and Category 2 is certainly a possibility.
Yeah, most definitely. You also mentioned that corridor there of like potentially heavy rainfall depending on where the storm makes landfall. You had mentioned a couple days ago levels of river levels, Mississippi River are pretty low. How does that look for other rivers around the area?
You know, our rivers, they were swollen last week because of the rainfall we were seeing.
So
a lot of these rivers, they respond fairly quickly, so hopefully we've got them all drained out. Tim Kerner down in Lafitte, Meg Ferris was talking about that from all the rain, the bayous and the marshy areas, they are swollen right now, meaning they already have water. And his concern was you're adding on to maybe 4 to 7 feet of what is already some minor flooding. And that only causes more flooding in those areas down into Lower Jefferson. These are areas outside the levees. And so that's a compounding problem. With our rain we saw last week, the ground is saturated and leads to more flooding.
And not to stoke people's anxiety, because as you've mentioned repeatedly, this is no Ida. However, you know, low-lying areas, you do need to be prepared. You do need to be ready in the event.
You do, and you know how easily it floods down here in southeast Louisiana. Our geography is just prime for storm surge flooding. And yes, this is not going to be an Ida. I know a lot of people down there, some people still don't have roofs. They've been trying to get roofs on their house. Some people are still in FEMA trailers. And this is not going to be a 150, 180 mile per hour wind event. But we could see, if this thing comes in as a strong Cat 1, we could see 100 mile per hour wind gusts right there along the coast. You're talking Cocodrie, Chauvin, some of the hardest hit areas during Ida. And so you need to be thinking about where you're going to be if the winds do get up to 100 and the water starts to come up too. I will say one difference between this storm's storm surge and Ida's storm surge for Terrebonne Parish is where the storm is coming in. I don't know if we can take my graphics full really quickly. When you look at this path here, Ida came in from the southwest. And Terrebonne Parish specifically had a north wind most of the time, which was pushing the water out of Terrebonne Bay. In this case, the storm is probably going to come in just to the west of Terrebonne Bay, which means water is going to be pushed inward, inland into Terrebonne Bay. So if you didn't see storm surge in Ida in Cocodrie and Chauvin, you will likely see that storm surge here. So that was a bit of a difference here with our storm surge. I wouldn't gauge your values off of Ida if you're down there, because this is going to be a completely different ball game, not with winds, but the path that it's coming in, the trajectory that it's coming into the area. It'll lead to more surge in those areas around Terrebonne Bay.
And this really isn't that important, but looking at this map here and seeing how the storm initially had to hug the coastline there along the Gulf, what did that do in terms of its formation? I know that it was a bit slower in developing earlier.
Well, that's what helped us out last night with the dry air. So you had all that dry air coming off of Texas and the mountainous regions of Mexico right there. That got ingested into the storm, weakened it. Now what's interesting is that may be the reason that the storm took the east jog at the end of the day.
Just kind of the force
so
pushed it.
it's this weird double-edged sword of if the storm would have maintained its intensity last night, we very well could have had a hurricane this morning going probably more to central or western Louisiana. So it weakened overnight. It had the weird jogs around the center trying to form here and there, and that's probably why we're seeing that easterly jog. So it's weakening, not necessarily a good thing for our local area with its formation last night.
All right, Payton, thank you. I know you've got to get to the very latest. Payton's been very busy throughout the morning here as we continue to bring you updated coverage on Francine with the latest forecast map out in the 10 o'clock hour, as Payton mentioned, showing the storm move further east. Payton had forecast that during the WWL Louisiana morning news, suspecting that, which overnight, as he told you, those winds had weakened the system, but he does say that it has moved a little more eastbound there, so all eyes are on the storm's track. Again, what he also says, emphasizing that don't think because you see that line that the storm is going to follow that direct path. As you see in the map that he just showed us, last night it hobbled a little bit, and he says it will hobble again as it does make its way toward landfall sometime tomorrow afternoon. With that, as far as preparations are concerned, a lot of people talking about trash pickup in the city of New Orleans. This just in from IV Waste. They're saying that trash and recycling recycling service for the city of New Orleans has been suspended tomorrow. That is for New Orleans only. Normal Wednesday service, they say, will be on Thursday, Thursday service on Friday, Friday service on Saturday, and so on. Also, they tell us that they are suspending all commercial service Wednesday, too. That is the word from IV Waste, but it's probably safe to say utilities throughout the area, particularly trash service providers and whatnot, are modifying their plans ahead of this storm and ahead of a forecast that has it moving a little more east here. With that, there are calls for you to get your sandbags if that's what you need. In fact, on the front page of our website for you, WWLTV.com, we've got all you need to know. Links to get to sandbag locations throughout southeast Louisiana, but also potential parish by parish impacts from Payton, who's been tracking this storm all morning long. We do have a live blog too as we continue to watch the storm's path. Again, 10 o'clock hour has it moving closer east, as we do keep an eye out on that, as officials in multiple parishes throughout our area urge residents to be prepared ahead of this storm. A mandatory evacuation order along coastal communities, particularly in areas without any levee protection. Governor Jeff Landry issuing that emergency, calling for folks who do live in unprotected areas to get out. Depending on where your parish is, there's a specific time for that. Our website will walk you through it as well. Again, in Orleans and Jefferson parishes, however, again, areas that are protected by levees, the call is to shelter in place tomorrow as officials do brace for a wind and rain event here, as we do continue to look and see what Francine is going to do. With that, let's get back over to Payton, who's got the very latest.
Thanks, Brandon. The update with that 10 a.m. advisory, not only looking at our track update, but we have had some updates to our advisories, our watches and warnings. Most of the area is now under at least some type of warning. In the orange here are tropical storm warnings, where we are expecting tropical storm conditions tomorrow. This includes the city of New Orleans. It includes the river parishes, St. Charles and St. John. Now, St. James Parish, you're currently under a hurricane warning because you are closer to where that core of the storm could impact your area. We've got hurricane warnings in Lafourche, Terrebonne, St. Mary Parish, up into Assumption and Ascension Parish. We've got Lower Jefferson now under a hurricane warning too. And so this is the area where we're likely going to see our stronger winds, right here on the east side of the storm. Now, something else of note, if you're watching us, and I know we have viewers all across Louisiana that watch us outside of our technical viewing area. If you're watching us up in Macomb right now, you're also under a tropical storm warning, because as the storm moves up there tomorrow evening, you could see those stronger winds start to blow in. What's interesting about Francine is that it is going to be moving, so the winds will translate further inland. When you have a slow-moving storm and it's winding down, oftentimes the winds can weaken and they don't ever really make it inland. But in this case, the winds are going to be coming on through at a steady rate, and we will likely see those winds penetrate far enough inland. That's why Baton Rouge is under a hurricane warning. Now, if I'm evacuating, and I don't have a graphic for this yet, but we can talk about this. If you're evacuating, if you want to get out of town just to be safe, if you live in those areas where you're being told to evacuate, the best place to go is east or west. I would not go north up into Mississippi because, well, the tropical system is likely going to travel to the north. You can still have power outages there. Now, it's not going to be as extreme up here, but still maybe not the best. So if I'm evacuating, west is always your best case, right? You don't want to be on the east side of a storm, but if you're going west, I think once you get to Lafayette and beyond, you're looking okay. It's one of those things where if the storm does come to more our area, then the impacts will drop off quite dramatically the further west that you go. So if you do want to get out of town, heading to Lafayette and really beyond Lafayette, Lake Charles, I think that would be your best bet. Alexandria would probably be a good bet as well. Now, excuse me, Baton Rouge, probably not a good bet because they're going to be close enough to where they may have power outages, and so that is something you'll certainly want to monitor. And then if you're heading to the east, you probably want to at least go to Mobile or beyond, because we are expecting tropical storm conditions for the Mississippi coast here. Now, you could go to the Mississippi coast, go to the casinos, hang out there, but it's not going to be pretty weather. But once you get into the Florida Panhandle, things do improve quite dramatically, just because the storm is likely going to be heading more to, excuse me, I got to get rid of this cough, going to be moving more to the north as we head into your Wednesday night and into Thursday. And then once we get into your Thursday time frame, the storm is going to be well to our north. Brandon, we'll get back to you, and I'm going to go drink of water.
Get you a sip of water, Payton. Thank you. You've been working hard. We do want to continue to check in with area parishes. Let's go to Lafourche Parish now, where Captain Brennan Mathern from the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office is standing by on phone. Good morning to you.
And how are you?
Doing all right, good sir. We do appreciate you spending time with us as you all work to get things ready. We do know now that there is a mandatory evacuation that's going to begin tonight at 5 for those low-lying areas, anyone in a FEMA or state housing units. What is the latest you can tell us about that?
Yeah, we announced just recently that those residents, as you mentioned, we still have residents in FEMA and state housing from Hurricane Ida 3 years ago, and they're going to have to evacuate again, being forced to do so if you're in those FEMA or state housing units. And everyone south of the Lee-Ontario Lock in Golden Meadow, that includes all of Port Fourchon, and obviously that is something that we do not like to see, and we want to get them back up as quickly as possible. However, based on this trajectory and everything, this really resembles Zeta in a lot of ways for us. And of course, no two storms are the same, but we remember how fast Zeta came through. It was a quick punch of a Category 2, 3, and ultimately put a lot of water on the road in that area below the lock in Golden Meadow. So we expect that we could have a situation very much like that. With that said, we've also ordered a voluntary evacuation for Lower Bayou Blue, all residents of Eagle Island Road, and that's just some drainage concerns in those areas, as well as residents in mobile homes in low-lying areas, and basically anyone that feels vulnerable. So just to kind of save some phone calls into the parish if you're unsure of whether these specific areas include you. Bottom line is, if you feel unsafe or vulnerable, we encourage you to evacuate and get to a safe place. A shelter will be opening at 5 p.m. this afternoon at the Lockport Community Center, 5610 Highway 1 in Lockport. And that is the main message to residents right now. At this time, you should be completing your hurricane preparations by this evening and be ready to ride out the storm. As you know, Brandon, we've seen kind of the timeline move up for this. And so we believe people should be where they're going to be to ride out the storm at some point early Wednesday morning.
Most certainly. Also the call for those who may not have a voluntary or involuntary call to get out is to prepare, make sure your property is safe, get things from around your house that may be outside that can be carried by the wind and used as a projectile. With deputies out and about, what are they seeing in terms of people getting ready for that?
That's what we're seeing. Thankfully, people have been heeding the warnings. Lafourche Parish, just like all of your viewers in the New Orleans area, no stranger to storms, and we sort of know the drill at this point. So over the last 2 days, we've been seeing, lines long at gas stations and grocery stores, everybody preparing and taking it seriously. For the most part, though, everybody, or most people rather, ready to ride out the storm, sort of a shelter-in-place mentality here for this storm, as we've seen far worse in the future. But obviously, we have a lot of people in mobile homes and in housing that maybe is substandard, and it may be something that you want to consider going to a substantial shelter like that Lockport office. Our deputies, we're going to be increasing our presence on the roads beginning this evening at 5 o'clock, just to, out of an abundance of caution, to make sure everybody's safe. We'll be going to our typical system during a storm, and we're going to increase visibility as far as our deputies go through the duration of the storm.
All right, Captain Brennan Mathern from the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office, sir, we greatly thank you for updating us on efforts being done there this morning.
Thank y'all.
All right, and with that, again, just to reiterate, evacuations will begin there at 5 o'clock this evening. Mandatory evacuations for residents in FEMA or state housing units south of the Lee-Ontario locks. A voluntary evacuation order has been issued for Lower Bayou Blue community, Eagle Island Road, and anyone in a mobile home, low-lying area, and anyone feeling vulnerable. So with that, the parish is offering, again, Lafourche Parish, offering a shelter at the Lockport Community Center. That address, 5610 Highway 1 in Lockport. If you're going, they're urging you to bring at least 2 days worth of food, water, medicine, and bedding. Also bring charging cables to take care of your devices there. That's the story right now in Lafourche Parish, where folks are preparing. We are also looking at conditions in Plaquemines Parish, where parish officials are holding a press conference right now.
Sure.
Let's listen in live.
At the multipurpose center. It's opened up at 12 noon, or will be opened up at 12 noon today. This is for shelter and water only. Please bring all of your essentials. and any type of food that you want to carry you through the evening. Should you need transportation, you need to contact Community Action. That number is 504-934-6940. Small pets are welcome only if, as a resident, that you are staying at the facility. We ask that you don't bring the pets and use the facility for your pets to be sheltered there. Animal control will transport the animals to the facility if you're needing to need a ride to the facility. So that needs to be said and established when you make contact with Community Action. Please take your animal to the shelter if you are driving yourself. Ferry update. Ferry tolls will be suspended at this time and operational until further notice. Pump stations will be manned and operational. Trash pickup. Normal pickup today. No trash pickup on Wednesday or Thursday, weather permitting. Trash pickup will start back on Friday. Medical facilities. The Port Sulphur Medical Facility is 24/7. The bus will be located here at the government complex at the multipurpose center should there be any medical needs needed while the residents are staying here. And they will have a physician and a nurse on site as well. The Bell Chase PMC will be operational from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Plaquemines Parish government will be closed tomorrow and Thursday. Only essential employees are asked to come in tomorrow and Thursday as well. And we've established that, and your directors and your supervisors will inform you of who the essential employees are. We also ask that you register for emergency notifications. If you've already registered, please make sure that the information that you've given us is correct. And we ask that you watch your local news and community web pages for updates. And we ask that you do listen to your local leaders and stay safe and vigilant. We will continue to monitor and provide updates as they come into us. And at this time, I'd like to bring up Sheriff Turlich and let him give you up his updates. Sheriff?
Thank you, President. Good morning. Just a couple tidbits I have. The Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's Office Incident Command Center will open at 6 a.m. tomorrow. The Incident Command Center phone number is 504-934-6782. So if you have any concerns, please call that number. We have activated our hurricane emergency roster. And in regards to traffic, a couple things I want you to know. The bridge's curfew is from 3:35 to 7:05 p.m. Venture Global they're working today till 4:30. Once they get off at 4:30 today, they'll be reduced to essential personnel only. The East Bank floodgate closes at 7 p.m. tonight. I'll have my guys there making sure our East Bank community is safe and get out and in a safely fashion. The Empire Drawbridge, it closes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. So everyone down the road, be aware and make plans for accordingly. The floodgate at Captain Larry's will not close. Me and the parish president have had extensive talks about this, and that is only closed as a last resort. So that will not close. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I want to thank all of you for coming here today to give us the opportunity for these updates. I don't know if you have any questions.
Can you go over the evacuation one more time, please?
The evacuation?
Yes.
The areas?
Yes.
This morning at 7 a.m., it's areas that are outside of flood protection. That would be Lake Hermitage, Happy Jack, Myrtle Grove, Tidewater Road at Venice, White Ditch to Phoenix, Wood Park, and Grand Bayou. In areas that are inside levee protection, we're asking for a voluntary evacuation. That would be from Laura Seat to Venice and the entire East Bank.
For the mandatory evacuation, do you know if people have been heeding the warnings?
Yes, they have. Mr. Newsom gave me a report this morning, and I think we were down to what, maybe two trailers left in an area where they had like maybe 40, 50 trailers. So they're taking the warning, which I can truly appreciate that, what they're doing.
Realistically, what are you expecting the impacts to be on Plaquemines Parish, both the east and west bank?
Realistically, I'm hoping, it's wishful thinking. I'm feeling comfortable that, we may have minimum, if it stays the course that it's in right now. But at the same time, as we speak, we're also getting updates that it keeps pushing a little bit further east. We did have an update on tidal surge for the East Bank. It went from
2 to 4
to
3 to 5.
So it rose a foot in surge on that side.
Do you have any water on the road right now?
No.
Do you expect water on the road, LA 23, or?
I believe we were talking with the chief this morning, and at 6 feet, you'll have some potential of water on the road.
What area?
That'd be on Highway 39 from White Ditch to Phoenix. It's an area that is not protected by any type of back levee system.
We should be comfortable at that, the 3 to 5 foot height. It'll probably approach the fog line of the highway, but it should not impact travel on the highway. Sheriff's Office will be monitoring, as well as parish government employees monitoring that portion of the highway on the East Bank as well. And also on the West Bank, if storm surge comes in at the 4 to 7 foot, we expect probably some overtopping in the Myrtle Grove to Alliance area. But got a lot of cow pasture area to fill up before it hits Highway 23, and we feel comfortable right now that 23 will be passable during the storms. But just out of precaution, that's why we issued the voluntary evacuation. For those that got any type of special medical needs and stuff that's not comfortable staying down south or on the East Bank in trailers and so forth, just to, need medical attention, so forth, just come up north to northern in the parish if necessary, if possible.
And we've also delivered some light carts, I believe, this morning for the Sheriff's Office to station them at the White Ditch and the Phoenix area, so that you have some lights in those areas, because that's very rural, and so, yeah.
Is there a curfew? Can you declare a curfew?
No, we haven't declared any kind of curfew.
So right now, is it just kind of more of a waiting game to see what we're going to get?
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're going to gather up as a government at 4 o'clock this afternoon and take another look at some of the new, at 4 o'clock.
The new models.
New models and all, to see where we are at that time. Again, thank you for being, and thank you for coming and, giving us this opportunity. Have a good day.
Thank you.
They call me some more trails again. Yeah, they just call me.
We do thank you for staying with us here. Those are officials there in Plaquemines Parish, just wrapping up a press briefing, updating us on their plan with the latest track record, or latest tracking map, I should say, from Francine in the Gulf of Mexico. Officials telling us that they have opened a shelter in Plaquemines Parish in Belle Chase, the parish government building there on F. Edward Hebert Boulevard, the multi-purpose center that is open. And they're saying that small pets are welcome there, but you have to be there with them. You can't just drop off your pet. Another note about garbage, we've talked about trash in Orleans Parish from IV Waste. Officials in Jefferson Parish say that their garbage pickup is normal today. However, there will not be trash pickup on Wednesday and Thursday. right now, things do seem to be normal for Friday, but of course that all depends on what Francine is going to do. As far as that is concerned, they're telling us that they're keeping the medical facility, the hospital there in Port Sulphur, open 24/7 throughout this storm system here. And if you do need a way to get to shelter, if you do not have access to transportation, officials say call this number, 504-934-6940. Again, that is if you need transportation to a shelter, 504-934-6940 in Plaquemines Parish, to be specific. Now, they also tell us that a mandatory evacuation order has been issued in the parish for low-lying areas, unprotected areas throughout the parish. Also, on the east bank of the river, the floodgate there is going to close at 7 tonight. So if you are on the other side of that floodgate there, you don't have any protection, you got to get out, and they're closing the gate at 7 o'clock tonight. Also, the drawbridge and Empire on the other side of the river, that's going to close tomorrow morning for people on the low-lying areas there on the west bank side of the river in Plaquemines Parish. Also, other communities there, again, those low-lying areas, if you do not have levee protection, you have a mandatory order to get out of Plaquemines Parish. Incident command number, officials say, if you have any emergencies that you need to share with them, that number is 504-934-6782. Again, they're saying that they do expect to see the potential for some overtopping potentially in Plaquemines Parish, particularly low-lying areas with that storm surge. But they also say areas where that may happen are cow pastures and whatnot. So they do think that they have enough land to sustain any flooding so that Highway 23 will not have any significant water coverage there. Right now, despite the rain that we're seeing, officials saying that they're not seeing any water on Highway 23, and they're hoping to keep it that way with those evacuation orders being put in place there. If you are in Plaquemines Parish and you need to shore up your place with sandbags, you do have an opportunity to do so. Began this morning at 10 a.m. Several options for you, in fact, at the Port Sulphur YMCA, the Buras YMCA, the Leroy Harvey Park in Boothville, Devant Community Center, Braithwaite Auditorium, and beginning at 12 o'clock, the Bell Chase Government Complex. Again, sand and bags are provided, but you've got to bring your own shovel, as these are self-serve opportunities here in Plaquemines Parish, where officials are issuing the call to get out if you are in an unprotected area of the parish without levee protection. In fact, if you're on the east bank of the river, again, those floodgates are going to close at 7 o'clock tonight. And as for the other side of the river, the drawbridge and Empire, it's going to close first thing tomorrow morning as officials there begin the call to get residents to get out as we do rate for Francine to make landfall here along the Louisiana coastline with that eastern moving path line there that Payton just showed us when the updated forecast map came out just almost an hour ago right now. With that being said, let's check in with Payton. Let's get the very latest from him.
Thanks, Brandon. I wanted to do a parish-by-parish breakdown, starting with our North Shore parishes, and we'll work our way across the area. For the North Shore, we do expect, we have tropical storm warnings all across the North Shore. Your timing is really all day on Wednesday into Wednesday evening. Rain 3 to 6 inches, isolated totals 8 to 12 inches. There's going to be a narrow corridor in our area that sees a lot more. Wind gusts, we'll say 50 to 70 miles per hour. I think the further west you go, off towards Tangipahoa Parish, your wind gusts do increase. Your surge is 3 to 5 feet. Now, I was just looking at our river parishes, our rivers on the North Shore, and we do have flood watches for all of our rivers. Two things. We're going to get some rainfall, 3 to 6 inches. We had a lot of rain last week. Things are swollen, so rivers will fill up from rain. But also, our rivers are going to back up because of storm surge that's going to be pushing up onto the North Shore. So 3 to 5 feet of surge coming up your rivers, also rain coming down, and that's going to lead to some flooding. Right now, the Tangipahoa River is forecasted, and this is at the Robert location, it's forecasted to rise up to about 18 feet by Thursday and Friday as that water slowly drains in to the lake. That is just shy of moderate flood stage. Our other rivers, the Bogafalaya is forecasted to crest just under moderate flood stage at around 9 feet. That would be into Thursday as well, is when we'll see that Bogafalaya be at its highest. The Bogafalaya near Covington is forecasted to rise up to about 45 feet. That's minor flood stage. So we're not seeing any major flood stage statuses with any of these, but the rivers will likely rise. And if you live along those, do expect minor to maybe moderate flooding up along your rivers on the North Shore. All right, let's go down south to the metro area. tropical storm warnings in effect for Orleans, Jefferson, and into St. Bernard here. This is for Wednesday. Tomorrow, our impacts will be felt much of the day. 3 to 6 inches of rain, winds gusts 50 to 70 miles an hour across the metro area. Probably the further west you go, the higher the wind gusts, maybe less the further east. But either way, some damaging wind gusts if that core of that storm moves close enough. Now, as you get out into the river parishes, this is where we're likely going to see even stronger winds. You have tropical storm warnings for St. Charles and St. John, but that red there is a hurricane warning for St. James Parish, and then you have hurricane warnings for Ascension and Assumption, and hurricane warnings up into Baton Rouge. Winds gusting 60 to 80 miles an hour. It's possible if the storm comes in strong enough, we may have to bump those numbers up, but some damaging wind gusts out in the river parishes is certainly a possibility. Rain averaging 3 to 6 inches, but I do think there's that chance we see isolated 8 to 12 inches of rain. Your surge coming in off the lake will be coming this way as initially as the storm is to your south. Winds wrapping in, pushing water into St. John Parish. We'll say average 3 to 5 feet of surge there for the river parishes. Now, the bayou parishes is likely where we see our biggest impacts. These are going to be our hurricane warnings in red. So hurricane warning for Terrebonne, hurricane warning all of Lafourche. Lower Jefferson is what you're seeing here in red. So that includes Lafitte and down into Grand Isle under a hurricane warning. Winds gusting 70 to 90 miles per hour. Now, the closer you get to the coast and where that storm comes on shore, right now it's centered around St. Mary Parish here, we could have wind gusts approaching 100 miles an hour if it is a Category 2. Might even be higher. So some fairly significant winds possible in our coastal areas down here in Terrebonne Parish. Now, I think for Thibodaux and Houma, your most likely scenario is that 70 to 90 mile per hour wind gust. And also your surge is nothing to avoid down here. I mean, you're talking 5 to 10 feet down here in Terrebonne Bay, that's Cocodrie Chauvin, and you're talking 5 to 10 feet down here in St. Mary Parish where the Atchafalaya dumps into the Gulf. Right in there, that water comes up just south of Morgan City. You've got 5 to 10 feet of inundation. All right, we're going to go over to our coastal areas, talking more specifically for Plaquemines Parish and down into eastern St. Bernard. I think Grand Isle, where you have a hurricane warning, 60 to 80 mile per hour wind gusts are possible. You're talking about 4 to 7 feet west of the river, so the west bank side of the river, that's Barataria Bay. That water gets piled into that bay there, and you're talking 4 to 7 feet of rise all the way up to Lafitte and Jean Lafitte. The east bank of Plaquemines, I need to update that. That should be 3 to 5 feet of surge, so that's going to be the east bank, and over into Shell Beach, 3 to 5 feet of water rise. And you know, that's pretty normal for those areas. That is nothing that you haven't seen many, many times. You're not talking about catastrophic storm surge there, but definitely some nuisance flooding along those roads. Now, over in South Mississippi, tropical storm warnings here as well. Our winds 40 to 50 miles an hour along the Mississippi coast. You're talking about 3 to 5 feet of surge across the Mississippi coast and 2 to 4 inches of rain with isolated higher totals. So that's what we're looking at with our parish by parish impacts. If you are just joining us just before 11 a.m., our 10 a.m. track came in expecting it to shift to the east, and it did shift to the east. We are now seeing the center of the track move more into St. Mary Parish. And you can see there the tropical storm force winds in yellow expected to reach our coast by tomorrow morning. We'll say by 9 or 10 o'clock, conditions will probably start to go downhill along the coastal areas as winds approach, 35 to 40 miles an hour. And then those strong winds will continue to build in throughout the afternoon. And then once we get into Thursday morning, here we are Thursday at 9 o'clock, the storm is north of Jackson and heading up to Memphis. So that's why I've been saying don't travel north if you're trying to evacuate. We will likely see some power outages scattered all across the path of this. So if you are going to evacuate, go west or go east. Get outside the path of the storm. Go to Lake Charles. They are looking okay. This type of path is going to be a close call for Lafayette, so I would certainly go over towards Lake Charles. And if you're going to get out of town and go east, maybe to Florida, you'll be good once you probably get to Mobile and go over into portions of the Florida Panhandle. They're not expecting any major impacts across that area. So that is the latest with the 10 a.m. track. Once again, that surge, it's something to certainly watch out for, especially in our bayou parishes. We're talking down into Terrebonne and Lafourche, that 5 to 10 feet are possible, 4 to 7 feet down in Barataria Bay, and then that 3 to 5 feet as we get into eastern St. Bernard, South Mississippi, and over into Lake Pontchartrain. If you live along the North Shore, the water will likely start to come up as the storm passes to your west. So as the storm travels here, remember, the winds are going around it counterclockwise, so your winds are being pushed to the north with the storm to your west. That will keep water high as long as the storm is to your west, and it looks like that's going to be the case for about 2 days. So the water's going to stay elevated on the North Shore for several days more than likely, and if you live right there on the lakefront, I know you flood very easily, you will see flooding, so you need to take those precautions, make sure your cars are out of the way. Get your pirogue tied to your house if that's what you use it for. I know some people have little boats that they tie to their sides of their house so they can get to their cars up the street. You're likely going to have some water inundation of at least 3 to 5 feet there as the storm passes somewhat quickly, but still passes by to the west. The next track update, if you're curious about that, that's going to happen around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Chris Franklin will be in with that one. The track as of 10 a.m. showing right in line with what our models were depicting. If you were watching yesterday, this was all further to the west, so that jog to the east happened overnight. It'll be interesting to see, does this trend continue? Our next batch of models won't come in for several more hours, but we could continue to see maybe that cone shift further east if we think it's going to come more in line with parts of St. Mary Parish and more so into Terrebonne Parish as we head into your Wednesday. So that's what it's looking like as we get into your track. Brandon.
Payton, thank you for that. Let's go live now. Joining us on the phone is Mayor David Carmadel from Grand Isle. Sir, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Out of the protected area, so there is that evacuation call. How are conditions currently?
Well, we got the first little, look like I don't think it's too much to do with the storm, but it's what's happening. It's the first little purple stuff's coming around. We just get some serious rain, but our people are still moving in and out. They're hauling stuff as we speak. I mean, they've been coming all night long, all day long yesterday, and I just wanted to let them know that the road's still open, and we just keeping an eye on things. Just got out of a conference call with GOSEP, and like you said earlier about the water coming up in our area, so we're just making sure that our people get everything higher up, to make sure that they don't leave that downstairs,
Yeah, most certainly. Making sure that Highway 1 is still open. Has there been any word yet on what time 1 will close getting out of Grand Isle, or will that happen? Do we know yet?
No, we're still early stages. I'm just traveling right now. Just got off the Leeville Bridge, and there's probably, and it's the real low to tide as we speak. I'm looking on both sides of the bayou right now.
Oh, that's good.
The tides, so it look like it's gonna, it looked like it's gonna, hopefully that this thing pass fast, like y'all were saying, like get it out the way,
Yeah, most definitely, and it is forecast to move quickly once it makes landfall. But with that eastern trajectory there is, just some concern for what we may see here. It's Grand Isle, so of course you know how to deal with a storm, be it a hurricane, be it heavy rain. But I'm just curious, what is the move? What is the mood, rather? What's the tenor, the tone on the island with residents there in anticipation of this storm?
Yeah, we're talking with a few of the old timers, and some of the locals in the area. We're taking a head count later on this evening, but all of us know that we're probably gonna get a lot of water.
Yeah,
that's something that they never forgot. Hurricane Juan. Everybody thought it was gonna be okay, and the storm came in and put 10 feet of water. So we just look at it as natives down here. We keep an eye on that, and you never want a cold front to go down in September in the Gulf. Things are going to change quick,
Yeah,
and that's the way we're raised, and, so in the meantime, that's one of our fears is the water,
Yeah, most definitely, sir. And for folks there who may need help with anything, any numbers about which they need to know or where they can go?
Yes, sir, the Grand Isle Police Department, 9895 787 2204.
Right.
And the policemen's, all my policemen's going to be there. My fireman's going to be there, and we're going to be there, elected officials, and anybody that's in need. We're making sure that we're going to be able to service them. But once all hell breaks loose, we can't get to you, but we know where you're at. We're just going to keep an eye on things,
Yeah, most definitely, sir. And I know I'm going to let you go in a second. I'm just curious. I mean, talk about Lafitte and that community still rebuilding after Ida some 3 years later. Parts of Grand Isle that were hit by the storm, I mean, how are they doing?
Yeah, well, what's happening right now, we got about 10 FEMA trailers, state trailers, and they coming to pick them up. So what we did, we opened a multiplex center. We put a few people in there, and Lafourche Parish talking to Archie Chasson. He has something in Lockport in the center of there in case we want to haul people up there. So, most of the trailers are out, and we're just making sure the boats in the trailer. So, the people feel and they coming to get their stuff.
Right.
Summer's over, but we had a great summer. We want to thank all the people for coming in.
Sure.
They love the island. They love the beach. So, and then the Corps of Engineers still left a lot. In the meantime, we got to protect it, and it was hoping to finish by the end of the year, but with this storm coming, at least I got a good bit of protection, with the burrito levee and with the clay on top. I'm a rock man, a burrito levee, but I want clay on top, and then for sand, you got to put it for the birds. But in the meantime, that's gonna be washing back on my highway. Hopefully not, but in the meantime, we got a little more protection than we had, from the last storm.
All right, well, that is the good news, Mayor. Happy to hear that y'all are all collected there and ready to go for this storm and what it may do once it makes landfall. Thank you to you. Our best wishes to the community of Grand Isle.
They'll do a good job. Thank you so much.
Let's go live now to our Paul Murphy, where officials in Plaquemines Parish just wrapped a press conference briefing us on what they've got going on. Paul, what can you tell us?
Well, like most areas here in the New Orleans area, we have a lot of folks that are keeping their eye out on the tropical storm, Hurricane Francine. There was a meeting here at the parish government building in Belle Chase a little while ago, where there was a conference call with the Governor's Office of Emergency Preparedness. And with that jog to the east, there have been a few changes in the potential impacts here in Plaquemines Parish. And joining us is Patrick Harvey. He's the Emergency Management Director here in Plaquemines. Talk about some of those changes that you just learned about.
Okay, on the east bank of the parish, the storm surge has risen from 3 to 5 feet. West bank stayed the same at 4 to 7 feet. We still don't see any potential impacts to Highway 39 on the east bank. We're going to continue to monitor that as the storm moves closer to us. We feel the need that Highway 39 will be passable on the east bank. West bank, like I said, 4 to 7 foot storm surge. There are some low areas on the Alliance to West Point Lahash back levee system. We expect that to get overtopped some, but it's got a ways before it'd have to reach Highway 23. We don't expect Highway 23 to be under water, during Francine, but we issued a voluntary evacuation to the residents that's living inside the levee protection system on the west bank from Alliance to Venice and the entire east bank of the parish. That's as a precaution for those that have medical needs and stuff that don't feel safe staying in their homes and all, to seek safe shelter during Francine. Also, a mandatory the voluntary is effective at 2 p.m. this afternoon. A mandatory evacuation was issued this morning for 7 a.m. for those living outside the levee protection system. Those areas include the Myrtle Grove Estates area, Wood Park, Lake Hermitage, Happy Jack, Grand Bayou, and Tidewater area in Venice. Those are on the west bank, and then on the east bank, from the White Ditch area to the Phoenix split on the east bank. Those are evacuations at this time.
What's your biggest area of concern right now?
It's going to be, potential flooding of, both 23 and 39. Like I said, we're going to be monitoring that. And, those areas, if they get impacted by storm surge and, flood, then it cuts us off from both, the southern end of our east bank and southern end of our west bank of the parish.
And what type of wind speed are you looking at?
Right now, tropical storm force winds will looking to impact Plaquemines Parish. But if Francine continues to jog to the east, those chances will increase higher to, for stronger tropical storm force winds or potential, hurricane force winds for the parish.
So what are you telling your folks right now?
Go ahead and start, continue preparations, securing items around your residents. You make a plan, prepare for power outages. That's one of the issues that, we all tend to have nowadays. If you have a generator, make sure you have fuel for that generator. Then the 20-20-20 plan is, if for a safety measure with a generator, make sure the generator is 20 feet from your residence. If you got to refuel it, wait 20 minutes to refuel it, where for any types of fires or what have you, and also invest $20 for a carbon monoxide detector for your house in case you get carbon monoxide poisoning. It can alert you, because those have led to many deaths post storms in the recent years.
You know, one of the things that we talk about a lot when we see these storms that seem to bounce here and there is when you see it jog one way and you have a projected track, then people sort of let down their guard. But there's a danger in doing that, particularly when you just don't know where this storm is going to make landfall until it actually makes landfall, right?
That's correct. You know, whether the storm jogs a little bit to left or right, we're still going to have some type of impacts. You know, a storm can be 200 miles away in Plaquemines Parish. As we stick out in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, we get storm surge, we get winds, you know, we get impacted some kind of way. You can't just focus on the cone that the storm is in. You got to look outside the cone. That's where, you know, you're going to get impacts from a storm. So be prepared, you know, for these little jogs east and west and all. We're going to, you know, have these issues throughout, you know, for the next couple of days here. Also, we got floodgate closures going on here in the parish. The Hero Canal floodgate, that'll be closed this afternoon. The Empire floodgate for the Empire Safe Harbor will be closing that at 2 o'clock this afternoon on a low tide. So anybody that has vessels that's seeking safe harbor in the southern part of the parish, please get to the Empire Safe Harbor by 2 o'clock this afternoon. The Flood Protection Authority East will be closing the Braithwaite floodgate. That's a Highway 39 floodgate at 7 p.m. tonight. That's at the parish line between Plaquemines and St. Bernard. And we will not be closing the Highway 23 floodgate in Jesuit Bend and Oakville by Captain Larry's. That will remain open. We're going to be closing any minor floodgates throughout the parish, but the highways will be passable at this time.
And you and I were talking before we came on the air about the salt water in the Mississippi that's working its way up. Will this storm have any effect on the arrival time of the salt water? Will it help dilute some of that and push it back towards the Gulf?
We anticipate some salt, with the surge and all pushing salt water up further. But with the amount of rainfall that's predicted with this storm and the, upper Mississippi River Valley and stuff as it travels, Thursday, Friday into Saturday, should drop a bunch of rainfall down south and will help us out to push salt water out. That's what we're hoping for with Francine.
And so when is the next time the parish is going to meet? I know that they were talking about the command center activating, and you were going to meet, I guess, at 4 o'clock today?
We're looking to meet again at 4 o'clock to just go over our plans and what we had accomplished today and what is left to be accomplished tomorrow and stuff as we, start to prepare and hunker down, as everyone says, for, Francine coming, tomorrow afternoon to our parish. Also, we have shelter here on the parish government complex in Bellchase that's opening up at noon today for those residents that feel unsafe, that are seeking a shelter. We'll have that open up. Please bring your food. We'll provide water and stuff and your essentials. Also for pets, small dogs and cats. Those could be brought and sent. They'll be staged at the animal shelter. But if you're evacuating and you don't bring your out of town and you're not bringing your pet, we cannot accept the pets. Your pets have to go with you. So.
One of the things we also say a lot when it comes to these storms is when a storm is approaching and when the storm is hitting, that's no time to go joyriding, no time to go sightseeing. Stay in your homes if you're going to shelter in place.
That's correct. Stay indoors. Don't go sightseeing at all because you come across down power lines, down trees and everything. You're impeding us, the first responders and all, to evaluate the situation after the storm passes. Let us get out there, make sure roadways are cleared and stuff, and it's safe for everybody to travel. And listen to your local leaders, your local news for the most accurate information from us.
And you have your crews already standing by to help clear those streets.
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir. We'll be out 24/7, making sure highways are cleared, and our pump station operators will be on site at the pumps, as weather is able to allow them.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick Harvey. He's the Plaquemines Parish Emergency Management Director. So like most of us, the parish is waiting and watching to see where Storm Francine ends up. But there are a lot of things that people need to consider. If you're going to evacuate, make your plans now. If you're going to shelter in place, make sure there are no loose objects in your yard that might become flying projectiles, even in tropical storm strength winds. Also, check those branches out that may be close to your house and some trees that may also cause a problem in the event of the storm hitting this area. So that's where we are here in Plaquemines and Belle Chase. Paul Murphy, WWL Louisiana.
Great reporting. Thank you, sir. Again, the word from officials in Plaquemines Parish, they are ready for this storm to make landfall. There are some mandatory evacuation orders in place in Plaquemines Parish, particularly those low-lying unprotected areas. Again, we've been telling you that the floodgate there on the east bank of the river will close at 7 o'clock tonight. Meantime, the drawbridge in Empire is set to close tomorrow morning for unprotected areas of Plaquemines Parish. As far as roads are concerned in Plaquemines Parish, two major highways. If you're on the east bank of the river, on the east side of Plaquemines Parish, you're talking about Highway 39, west side Highway 23. Let's start with the east bank of the river. Officials say that they do believe that Highway 39 will remain passable throughout this weather event. They are concerned, though, about the west bank side of Highway 23 right now. The potential, they say, for some overtopping of the levee protection system over at the West Point of Lahash area, but they also say that that's mainly a grassy area, cow pasture and whatnot. So they do believe that there is enough land to catch that water in the event there is some overtopping, so not as to compromise Highway 23. That is the word right now out of Plaquemines Parish. Another note from Paul Murphy, you know, we've talked a lot of late about that saltwater intrusion and it returning this year like last year, although some safeguards have been put in place by parish officials. They do think that when this makes landfall and the surge pushes water in, that there could be potential for more salt water to push upriver. However, what they are also looking at with this forecast, there is rain, and they do say that they expect there to be enough rain so as to push out what is pushed in. That is the word from Plaquemines Parish. Our Paul Murphy joining us live. Let's get over to Payton, who's got the very latest on the storm track.
Thanks, Brandon. And if you're just joining us here on this Tuesday morning, September the 10th, as we're tracking Francine, the storm is still a tropical storm, so it is not rapidly intensifying just yet. There is a chance that maybe it does today, but the biggest inhibitor that we've looked at the past 12 hours has been dry air. It looks like the storm, though, is finally wrapping itself off from that dry air. You can see a little fetch of it here, and this is when we may start to see it actually intensify into a hurricane. So the good news is it's not doing anything rapidly as of this morning, but that could change depending on how this evolves. You can see these bursts of thunderstorms. They're trying and they may do it, but this is what we're going to be watching. The northeast movement now. Pressure's down to 988, so the pressure has dropped. That's a sign that the storm is trying to strengthen. The winds just haven't responded just yet, but they probably will. So we do think this will be a hurricane at some point today. Now, right now, the National Hurricane Center is saying a Category 1 as we go through today. Strengthening is possible all day long. That could bring it up to a Category 2. Now, when you look at these forecast tracks, you have to be careful because they only forecast every 12 to 24 hours. They don't forecast every single point on the map. And if you go read the hurricane discussion, they do mention that there is a chance that maybe this still makes a run at a Category 2. I don't necessarily want you to get hung up on a Category 1 or Category 2 at this point. I would say be preparing for a Category 2, better safe than sorry, but if the storm can battle off that dry air and wind shear, there is that chance that maybe it does become that Category 2 right before landfall. That is still a possibility. So I know you look at this and think, okay, they've decreased the intensity. Not really. They said that it's probably going to happen. If it will happen, it'll happen in between those two forecast points. Either way you look at it, we're on the east side of a landfalling Category 1 storm. That's going to be moving. That's great news. That means it's not going to hang around for days and days, but at the same time, a faster moving storm can help those winds penetrate further inland. So there will be that wind risk all across the area. I want to briefly talk about storm surge in great detail. Now, luckily, we have this thing called the slosh model. This is how the National Hurricane Center comes up with their forecast. And what this is, excuse me, is a very detailed look on where the storm surge will be. And it's a more detailed look compared to that graphic where we just show you the colors of 5 to 10 feet all across the coast. In reality, it's not going to be that high every single location. And based on this current track, if it comes in around Morgan City, St. Mary Parish, that's the official track, your highest surge will be right there on the east side of the storm. That's the Atchafalaya right there. And so that's Terrebonne Parish, there's Morgan City. That's where you'd see your water back up the most. Now, admittedly, I'm not extremely 100% familiar with the geographics around Morgan City on the south side of town, but that water would get pushed up. Now, if this track is a little further this way and the storm comes in, maybe right here instead of here, well then you've got a northerly wind over here in St. Mary and it's pushing the water out into the Gulf. So this is a very minor track detail that has big implications on where the storm surge will be at its highest. Now currently with that track and intensity of a strong Category 1, weak Category 2 here moving inland, we are forecasting in the red there closer to 10 feet of surge. Here in Terrebonne Parish, of course, a lot of this goes underwater fairly easily as it's marsh. You're going to see anywhere from 7 to 9 feet of inundation here. That includes Cocodrie. That includes getting up to portions of Chauvin. So if you're down here in Terrebonne Bay, I can really zoom in and show you that you could see inundation of around 7 to, we'll say up to 7 feet around Cocodrie and up to, we'll say 5 to 7 feet around Chauvin. So that's water above your head. That's pretty tall. And so if you are down here, obviously no big levees down here to protect you. So that's going to come into Terrebonne Bay and it gets funneled in there too. So that adds on to it. Now down in lower Lafourche Parish, once you get outside the gates, talking towards Port Fourchon and into Grand Isle, I think maybe the models are underdoing this just a little bit. We're currently calling for 4 to 7 feet in this zone, and models are sort of split on what they do with this, but generally Barataria Bay, you're going to see water funneling in here. You'll see water coming up through the Barrier Island, Port Fourchon, Leeville, just outside of Golden Meadow. Water is probably going to come up near LA1, and it may even get up to it, depending on how high it can get. But you can see their worst surge the further you get into Terrebonne Bay, and a little bit less once you get into Barataria Bay. Now over here on the east side of Plaquemines and over into eastern St. Bernard, you're probably still going to see around 3 to 5 feet of surge. Other areas, this will be slightly higher, but that water gets funneled into Lake Borgne. It gets funneled in right here, and you see water funneled in up towards the Venetian Isles area. We're probably going to see at least 3 to 5 feet of surge out here for unprotected areas in New Orleans Parish, or in Orleans Parish. So a closer look out here in Orleans Parish, this is where you're outside the levees. Inside the levees, we're going to be just fine. But you'll see 3 to 5 feet of water rise. That'll get up on Highway 90 in parts of those areas as well. And then if you're watching us over in Bay St. Louis, and we all know Bay St. Louis, it floods if there's a slight breeze out of any direction. So you are seeing some water pile up down here by the Silver Slipper in Hancock County, the Bay of Bay St. Louis back in here, over towards Pass Christian, where you got the Jordan and Wolf River coming in. Water will begin to back up, and then here is the Jordan River. You can see water does get up maybe quite high, getting piled up into the bay there. Models are showing maybe closer to 5 to 7 feet for a couple spots in here. So it's these minor details, and if you live in these neighborhoods, I hope you know them well enough, but you may need to move your cars if you live in any low-lying areas, Shoreline Park, those areas around Bay St. Louis. So while you're not really in the core of this storm, the water is still going to be quite high, and it's just a reminder how susceptible we are. All right, one more area I want to talk about with storm surge, it's the North Shore. So as the storm is sitting to your west, which the current track is out here to the west, let's say the storm's got rotation or a spin like this, you're piling water mainly north of the lake. You notice down here on the South Shore, we don't have any significant water rise. That's because the way it looks right now, the winds are generally going to be out of the south, pushing water this direction, which would help out. Now the seas are going to be choppy. There's going to be some splashing on the lakefront there, but I think the North Shore is where we're going to see some higher water. 3 to 5 feet seems like a good bet for these areas. So if you do live along the lakefront there in St. Tammany, or if you live along the lakefront over in Tangipahoa Parish, you're going to see some water rise. And we're talking about those typical spots. I can zoom all the way into Madisonville and Mandeville, and you can see water getting splashed up right there. It doesn't penetrate very far inland, but where you live right there, it's a nuisance. Same thing back through Madisonville and in the marshy areas of these areas once you get back down towards Lower Tangi and south of Lee's Landing and back towards Manchac, Rudolph. You got 3 to 5 feet of water getting piled up in here too. And that will be funneled into Lake Maurepas as well, with only about 2 to 4 feet in Lake Maurepas is what I'm thinking with that current outlook. And then over here in Laplace, once you get outside those protected areas, you know the spots where you see water coming in, that's the spillway. This is over the spillway area, water will come in there, and you'll have some water trying to get in, probably about 2 to 4 feet or so right here, just outside of I-55 with those marshy areas getting backed up. too. And this is a reminder, storm surge flooding is only one component. Of course, we watch the rain, we watch the rivers. Now, all this surge is going to be pushing up on those rivers, so the water that's draining into the rivers on the North Shore, it's not going to have anywhere to really go. So it'll add up faster, and we do have river flood watches for all of our big rivers on the North Shore, the Bogafalaya, the Tangipahoa, and every other river that we've got going on up here. So the rivers will likely see some backing up as we get into more so Thursday. I think Thursday is when our rivers will probably be cresting before they begin to drop. And those winds will eventually switch out of a different direction and help that water drain out. So that's a debrief on what we're looking at with storm surge. The overall message is storm surge is going to be worse the closer you get to the center. As of 10 a.m., the center is currently tracking right here. But looking at our latest high resolution models, I still think I'm not even looking at some of the high resolution models. I'm talking about some of our big global models. They show a core of the storm moving closer to southeast Louisiana. In fact, I want to show you one that many of our models are showing something similar. This is the tropical Francine. You can see it down here. Model showing that it's getting close to becoming a hurricane at some point later this morning. Next update is 1 p.m. by the way. It continues to show it strengthening into today and tonight. And then once we get into tomorrow, this is when our wind shear and dry air really are going to be working on this thing. And that's what we're hoping happens, because it'll help at least level off the intensity. May even try to weaken it some. Now here we go. This is at 1 and 2 o'clock. Tropical storm conditions expected in the Bayou parishes by tomorrow afternoon, early afternoon, even in the maybe late morning. This is where your core of stronger winds are going to be. And you can see this model brings it in more into Terrebonne Parish. The hurricane center line is over here. So this is another trend we'll be watching to see if we have an update of 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now, once I put this in motion, you can see this model brings it in further east, a lot further east, and brings that corridor of stronger winds right over the metro. You've probably heard several people reference Zeta, and if you were here for Zeta, it was a very quick storm. It happened right before Halloween. Remember, it was 50 degrees afterwards. It wasn't great, but at least it wasn't too hot. But this is a similar setup where we got about a Category 2 storm, Category 1 storm or so, moving inland and racing across the area. But as it does race across the area, it brings some strong winds. So we're certainly going to watch this trend. If you end up getting in the core of this storm, winds gusting 70, 80, even 90 miles an hour are a possibility down along the coast. Now, in the metro area, Orleans Parish and Jefferson Parish, you can see there the winds gusting 50, 60, maybe 70. And this is if the core moves over the city. I mean, if it stays to the west, winds won't be as strong, but they'll still be quite strong across the area. So this is just one of those scenarios that is a possibility. And I don't want you to get hung up on that forecast line, because I was telling Brandon earlier, the chance that this storm follows that forecast line exactly as it's written on the map, it's not a very high chance of it happening. So you have to expect that there's going to be some minor wobbles here and there, and there's going to be some differences in what is actually on that forecast line. So do expect there to be some subtle changes here and there, and a lot of this you can't really forecast until it's happening. So this is why we're just kind of getting everyone ready in southeast Louisiana and even South Mississippi for those tropical storm force winds, and the closer you get to the coast, maybe even hurricane force winds. This is the timing, just to give you a guesstimate. This is late afternoon into the evening, storm still nearby, and then once we get into the early morning hours on Thursday, this model's a little further east. The Hurricane Center has it up here at that time. It's over here. But things will gradually improve into the early morning hours on Thursday, and it will be completely out of here as we head into your Thursday afternoon. So once again, Brandon, this is going to be a quick event. Relatively speaking, it's not going to be with us for 2 days, but overall, still could be a very impactful storm for parts of the area. We're talking power outages.
Most definitely, Payton. Thank you with that. And I also want to get to a note here from LCMC. They're announcing some closures ahead of Francine. They are closely monitoring the storm, as many are here. All LCMC health hospitals, they've activated their hurricane plan, and they're going to go into lockdown mode beginning Wednesday at 7 a.m. in anticipation for the storm making landfall. So with that, they're saying that all clinics and urgent cares are going to be closed, and elective surgery procedures will be canceled for Wednesday. At the moment, they do expect normal operations to resume first thing Thursday morning, but that all depends on what the storm does. So we mentioned hospitals will be on lockdown beginning tomorrow at 11 a.m. We have a list of that too, but I also want to move on to trash real quick, and I'll circle back to the list of hospitals that will be on lockdown mode. This just in, though, from IV Waste, as you see here on their screen, they are suspending service for residents in Orleans Parish. Today is the word from them in IV Waste right now. Normal Wednesday service will occur on Thursday, Thursday service on Friday, Friday service on Saturday. Doing a bit of a parish by parish check there, IV Waste says over in St. Bernard Parish, garbage collection is going to be suspended Wednesday too. Regular pickup they're expecting hopefully to have back up and running Thursday. Again, all fluid, depends on what the storm does here. Same story in St. Charles Parish. Garbage is suspended on Wednesday. They're asking folks to secure their trash cans and whatnot. Be ready, clean up debris if there's anything there or any potential for projectiles. They want you to be aware of that. Trash pickup is normal today there, though, in Plaquemines Parish. No trash scheduled for Wednesday or Thursday. Weather permitting, officials in Plaquemines Parish say that trash is expected to be resumed, or pickup, I should say, is expected to resume on Friday morning. This, of course, is all conditional depending on what that storm does and the trajectory, that path moving further east, at least at the 10 o'clock update that Payton has been walking us through. Again, the next update is going to be made available to us at 4 o'clock. Our team is on top of that right now. We are also on top of a press conference that we are expecting to start any minute right now. Governor Jeff Landry and state emergency management officials in Baton Rouge. You can see the podium there empty, but officials are expected to take the podium any moment. You can see they're getting ready right now. We're standing by, we're watching, and we will join it live as soon as they start talking. But the call for everyone here is to be prepared. Let's listen in live.
I'm going to turn it over real quick. We're going to just jump straight into the weather with Jay Grimes. He's going to give you a quick update, and then we're going to go through some of the cabinet secretaries to give you an update on where we stand as a state, and then we'll turn it over to the governor in the end. So Jay, can you please kind of step up?
All right, folks. Well, the first story here is to be aware that you still have today to prepare. We are going to start to get some rain in the area, but the real action doesn't start to kick in until Wednesday. Look for tropical storm force winds to start making their way along the coast and moving inland by the mid-morning hours. Landfall looks to be during the afternoon or early evening, but probably mid-afternoon on Wednesday. So tropical storm force winds begin tomorrow morning. You need to have everything completed by that time. Could be looking at storm surge anywhere of 6 to even 10 feet over portions of Vermilion and Atchafalaya Bay, depending on the track of the storm. Now, if you've been watching the storm tracks over the last 24 hours, they've been ever so slightly easing a bit to the east. So now the Baton Rouge metro area is under the gun in terms of a tropical threat. But I'm not convinced that that eastward shift is over just yet. The storm has already begun its movement to the northeast, and so that's a little earlier than we thought it would, and that at least in part explains some of the eastward shift of the track. We need to keep our eyes on this one. It won't be Laura, it won't be Ida, but it is still going to be an extensive impact in terms of the role of that storm as it rolls into south central and southeastern Louisiana. The good news here is it comes in at about 15 miles per hour, should push through relatively quickly. We're looking at rain totals of anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of rain widespread across South Louisiana. That's going to push a number of rivers up to and even above flood stage, so that's going to be a problem. And also because of that forward speed, while the storm will get out relatively quickly, it's also going to drive those tropical storm and hurricane force winds up to and north of the I-1012 corridor. All of south central and southeastern Louisiana under the gun with this storm. Again, keeping an eye on whether we see another slight shift in the track over the next 6 to 12 hours.
Oh, well done, Jay. Now we're going to get a quick update from the Attorney General. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's prepared or getting prepared for the storm today. You know, while we usually see the best in people during a storm, sometimes we also see the worst in people. And so I want to talk to you for a minute about price gouging. Price gouging occurs when someone or a business charges prices that are extraordinarily disproportionate to the ordinary prices that would be charged right before the storm or during the storm. We will have some information, some detailed information. We're going to put it out on the Get a Game Plan app. We'll also have that information available at our website at www.aglizmerle.com. If you suspect that someone is price gouging or has already been a victim while preparing for the storm, there's a few things that you can do. One, you can contact your local law enforcement. It can be a crime, so the first place you can go is to local law enforcement. You can also file a complaint at our website. The details matter, so when you do that, I would urge you to use as much detail as you can when you file that complaint. You can call the consumer hotline, which is, that number is 1-800-351-4889. So I just want to remind everybody that price gouging is illegal, and we are monitoring that. We will enforce the law, and we will make sure that no one is taken advantage of during the storm. It's not only wrong, it is illegal, and we will enforce the law. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to get Doc Abraham to give us a quick update with LDH. Doc?
Overall, the medical and water structures are intact. In cooperation with LNHA, LDH has almost constant communications with our nursing homes, more dedicated resources right now to regions 3 and 4. If the storm should shift, we will move appropriately and accordingly and follow that as far as what regions become more involved. Right now, most nursing homes plan to shelter in place. As of this minute, only one has had a partial evacuation in a Vermilion Parish, moved 8 patients to Mansfield up in DeSoto Parish, and that went very seamlessly. There are no reported issues from any hospitals right now. Region 6, the mega center, stands ready. It's not open, but if they need shelter and if it needs to open, then the governor has that discretion. As far as our Medicaid patients, guidance has gone out to the pharmacies to fill prescriptions early. That does not include controlled substances, but other substances, other prescriptions, and that no prior authorizations are going to be required during this event. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to get a dual update between the Louisiana Public Service Commission and the DEQ on the utility infrastructure. Ladies.
Good morning. The Commission is mobilizing and in communications with our electric utilities. They are currently all activating their emergency response plans. We have about 7,500 additional crewmen, including linemen and vegetation management personnel, ready and waiting to assess the storm damage and then respond as soon as they are safely able to do so. Power outages can be found on our website, which is www.lpsc.louisiana.gov.
Can you say your name?
Sure. Catherine Bowman. I'm the Executive Counsel for the Public Service Commission.
Good morning, everyone. Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality stands ready. Yesterday, we notified all of the licensed and permit facilities to make sure that they had their assets protected and secured. We will and have been coordinating with the parishes and the municipalities to ensure that the emergency debris sites are ready. For the nuclear power plants, which are Riverbend and Waterford, we are in contact with them to make sure that they are ready for the storm. And then also for the public's awareness, we have our single point of contact. That is if there are spills. We also have our debris hotline. So if there's any of those questions, that information will be available on our site, and we will keep that information updated. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the governor. Let me shift everybody down a little bit, if y'all don't mind. Shift everybody this way, Joe, if you can. And I'm going to turn it over to the governor because it's important that you can see the app right there.
down a little bit.
Yeah, good morning. As you can see, the cabinet's been busy. We had a great UCG meeting. Everybody seems to be working in unison. I feel very confident that all of the agencies have activated their emergency response plans and pre-positioning the assets needed for this storm. I want to thank Jay again for the continual forecasting that he's giving us. I think that adding that dynamic and element to GOSEP has been extremely useful. At yesterday's press conference, at some of the questions that I got from the media, I wanted to take an opportunity to again inform the citizens of Louisiana about the resources that we have put that are basically you can place in your hands, and that is the Get a Game Plan app. Now, you can go to your app store on your mobile device, and if you search Get a Game Plan Louisiana, it will populate first, and you should download that app. When you download that app, it will ask you if you want the app to be able to track you. You may want to do that so that the app can then push out information in your area, because the next notification that you get when you download the app is whether or not you want push notifications sent to you. This app will continuously keep you informed, okay, about information in real time that is happening right here in GOSEP. So this app, it first serves as a preparation app. Inside the app, you can find a hurricane preparation list, a family plan, a business plan. It has information where you can, let's just say you're a single mother with 3 kids and a cat. You can put that information inside the app, and the app will tell you the things that you should populate in your hurricane prepare list, right? And then we know what you have in your household as far as pets and children and personnel. So it's a preparation app. Then secondly, during the storm, it can serve as an information app. It gives up-to-date content that's managed right here by GOSEP. You can literally get information as quickly as I can through that particular app. It also, and then if you end up in an area under which you lose communication, keeping the app on your phone has location-based push notifications, and the data inside for very important information will be housed inside the app. So even if you lose communication, there's vital information that will stay in the app that you can access. And then finally, it serves as a post-storm information center. And so again, after the storm, information that you're looking for will be available on that app. So I'll give you an example. Resources, disaster recovery assistance, DOT information such as road closures, evacuation plans, weather information, as I said earlier, an emergency preparedness guide, are all things that you can find on this particular app, in addition to the public service announcements that we will push to you while utilizing this app. So again, I highly encourage the citizens of the state to take a look at this app. If you do not have a mobile phone, you can access this on a desktop as well. Again, as you can see by the information that was reported today, we are continually preparing for this storm. We will keep our citizens informed. Again, I'm confident that all of our agencies and our federal partners seem to be working very seamlessly. We are pre-positioning assets so that they will be available to the public on a needed basis. With that, I am happy to take any questions.
Yes, sir. With the wobbling of the storm, is that causing any challenges with the pre-positioning of any resources?
No, I don't. I don't. I mean, look, and Jay can further confirm this. Storms wobble. It's what they do. It's a normal track of wobbling that happens as hurricanes approach the coast. And so I'm very confident that the pre-positioning asset map that we have is going to be adequate for the storm that we're getting ready to face.
And has the National Guard been deployed and where?
Absolutely. Look, I'll tell you what. We'll have General Freelou give you an update on some of the commodities and personnel that he has. Look, I have it right here, General.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. So yes, the National Guard is mobilizing right now. We are deploying across the coastal parishes and throughout Louisiana. Again, just like the governor said, we have contingencies no matter where the storm wobbles. We place our forces where they can react, go north, go south, east, or west, and react to where we need those service members. Right now, we have we're focusing on high water vehicles and boats. We have 87 boats, 387 high water vehicles, and over 50 helicopters to work what we think is the most probable mission post-storm, which would be search and rescue. So those assets are out there right now. We're also pre-positioning commodities, those meals, water, and tarps, and those are staged as well. Right now we have 1 million plus meals, 1.1 million liters of water, and over 55,000 tarps. Thank you.
And we hope we don't have to use all of them, right? Okay, any other questions? Yep, Julie?
Okay, the app. I understand you guys are modernizing. I think all the information on the app is great. I can't help but think about my family. My mother barely uses her phone for anything that's not a phone call. My father has glaucoma. He can't see anything on his phone. I think that there are a lot of people in this state who can't read very well. We've had many discussions about that in the legislature, or who can't read at all. So what are we doing for people who can't, and post-storm, I mean, I remember Ida sitting in this room, no one had cell phone service. There was someone that was sitting with us that, Governor, you and I both know really well, couldn't get in contact with her family for 16 hours because no one had cell phone service. So what are we doing if a lot of people, for people who don't have cell phone service potentially after a storm, and people who just like can't use this very easily?
Well, there's a couple of things I would say, Julie. Again, we're doing the same things we did before all this technology became available, right? All right, so that nothing that we've been doing in the past has changed just because we have this technology. This technology adds an additional layer. However, we do know that the vast majority of people in this state use social media, use their phones, access the internet, and guess what? They should take an opportunity to help those who can't as well, so that we get that information. In addition, we have consistently, since hurricane season has began, informed our citizens in the state of what to do in order to prepare. The list and information that are out there can be used, can be printed out, and can be handed to those that may not have an opportunity to be able to access a mobile device or the internet. So again, we have tried to push this out to our community-based partners, to NGOs, to our nonprofits. That's the job that they can do to help us and to help those citizens who are in that type of position. Again, on the communication side, I spoke to AT&T earlier this morning. I know we instructed the PSC to reach out to the other network partners to ensure that they are pre-positioning assets, so we try to address some of the communication disruptions of the past. And so as we get those, we will inform you in press conferences just like this as well. Again, we are welcome to take any type of comments or constructive criticism that we can to try to reach as many people as we can. However, I will tell you that as I travel the state, the vast majority of people are walking around with a phone just like you in your hand. In addition to that, as I said earlier, I think this is important. Even if you lose communication, the app is designed to keep vital information on there that you can access. We're not going to have it all, but again, it's better than nothing. So thank you for your question.
Governor,
yeah, Payton.
It's my understanding that in the past there have been some state-run shelters, especially for medically vulnerable people. Can you tell us what has been opened for this storm, or what you are prepared to open for this storm?
John?
Sure, it's a combination. Our sheltering process is a combination. It's run by DCFS as well as LDH. When you're talking special needs, there's this joint mission between the two of them. All of it starts at the local level, and it goes back to the understanding of the app itself. All emergency management starts at that local level, then goes to the parish level, where the parishes have their shelters responsible in there. And then there's a state plan where we absorb, once a parish does not have a capability or they're exceeded their capability, we have a state mega shelter that we have in Alexandria, and we have a state shelter plan. Right now, DCFS currently is prepared for 500 people as a backflow if the parishes run out. We have not received any requests from the parishes for assistance from the state. Most of the parishes do it so often, and they're so good at it, they do sheltering on their own. Through the community centers and the churches and the schools is the first stage. But we're always there, and we never leave anyone behind. It's particularly the ones with special needs and medical.
Does that mean the medically vulnerable shelter is open, and where is it open?
Okay, it all depends on by the parish, and all of this is on our app. It's all listed on there as an element of DCFS is linked into that, as well as LDH. The doc's probably better to talk about the medical needs shelter than myself.
We've got 3 already that are open, Julie, in Vermilion. We've got a couple more opened here in Assumption and Lafourche, Terrebonne. They're going to open 1 shelter. St. John's going to open 2. Region 4, you can have 2 opened. Region 5 have not opened a shelter, and Region 2 have not opened a shelter. New Orleans in the Region 1 area, 2 shelters are opening. So these things are works in progress. As this storm moves closer, people are getting things in place, and the citizens can access it certainly on our website as to where these shelters are and when they're going to be functional.
Is the mass shelter in Alexandria ready to go?
It's ready.
Okay.
Yes,
It's
sir.
ready.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
In terms of medically vulnerable shelters, are those all going to be locally run, or is the state mega shelter going to be prepared to take some of those people?
Go ahead, Doc. We got it. No?
They generally will do what they can do at the beginning, and most of the time they can handle it themselves. But if they certainly need us or GoSep, we're a phone call away. And
They being the local shelters?
that's right, absolutely.
Governor, I know this situation is not the same as Ida, but there was a lot of hard-learned lessons in emergency response and for evacuations and everything. What is something that you observed after Ida, or a lesson that you learned that you want folks to keep in mind as we wait for this storm to come?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I think that every storm that we get gives us a greater opportunity to see where there are deficiencies inside the system. I would tell you that I think that if there is an area that we've worked on with, and to my satisfaction, is keeping people abreast of utilities, right, of the number of linemen and crews that we're bringing in. There's a virtual map now that people can go to so that they can understand how power is getting to them or how close that power is. The communication side, we're going to work very closely with our communications partners to make sure that we keep the lines of communications open. I think that we've learned that we have to be able to respond to making sure that people have lines of communication. So if AT&T is down, how does Verizon lay over that, or vice versa, or any of the other networks as well? I think that the closer and tighter you basically tether the local, state, and federal partners together, and then as the cabinet works in conjunction with each other, we keep our communication lines open. I think that those are things that help us. To me, the biggest where we end up failing in all of these storms is in communication, which is why we're doing it, which is why y'all are so important as well, being able to help us push that information out. And if you have questions or you see things on social media that we're not answering, if you let our comms team know, we will try to respond to those as well.
One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the fastest way for people to learn about evacuation orders?
Get a gameplan.org. I mean, I think that, look, we will, GoSep is putting information out as it happens, as we get them, as those evacuation orders happen, we put them out to y'all in the press. We immediately, as we are sending them to y'all, it gets posted on the app as well. Again, think about this. The app will tell you about those evacuation notices immediately because we push it out.
And when can we expect the next press conference?
That's what I was going to address. We do not want to put anyone at risk. Okay, so we will have a press conference tomorrow. However, we will most likely let the storm activity subside, and we don't want to put anyone at risk trying to get here. In all likelihood, it'll be sometime in the PM. You will see an invite, and we'll let you know when it's going to be.
So we're not having another one today?
There will probably not be another press conference today, correct. We want everybody to go home and be safe and prepare for the storm effects that will begin tomorrow. So the next press conference, again, will be tomorrow. Again, everyone out there, please be safe, stay Louisiana strong, and all the Louisiana agencies always have you back, always.
And again, I'd like to...
Governor Jeff Landry wrapping a press conference right now. The headline from the governor who says he is confident all state agencies have activated their plan. He's also urging residents throughout the state of Louisiana to get a game plan app. He says that everything you need to know about the storm as it happens will be delivered to you there. The governor saying that this will be the last press conference today, but they do plan to give an update tomorrow. This, of course, depends on what the storm is doing. Pretty wide-ranging conversation there from state emergency leaders. State climatologist Jay Grimes said that he's not convinced that that eastern movement that we've seen thus far is done just yet. So that's something that they're watching. But the good news as far as he sees it, again, Jay Grimes, the state climatologist, is that the storm is a quick mover, as Payton's been telling us too, and also looking to see if there is another shift in the track. Again, they're waiting to see that. That's something that they'll get to when we see the next map at 4 p.m. Price gouging, another concern. Liz Murrell is something, Attorney General looking into that right now. A number to call if you see that, 1-800-351-4889. She also says call your local law enforcement agency if you suspect that. Now, as far as preparations are concerned, I want to get to some video from our Mike McDaniel, who is in Lafitte reporting as crews are working to fill some 30,000 sandbags, particularly talking about low-lying areas of Lafitte in Jefferson Parish. Going to be seeing this throughout the day today and into tomorrow, as the governor has called for a mandatory evacuation in unprotected areas. Grand Isle, Lafitte, Barataria, and Crown Point. Folks who live in those areas know the drill. However, it is something that is a little uneasy whenever there is a storm there. So let's get over to Payton, who's got the very latest on the track.
Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, we continue to watch it. As you were saying, that east trend, not necessarily our friend over the past 12 hours or so. I do want to mention we have a large batch of rain sitting just off the Gulf. Some of this is going to try to work in, so we will have rain already, although the winds are not going to be anything extreme today. And I use the word extreme. The winds overall, we're not expecting this to be a Category 3, Category 4, Category 5. Now, what it will probably be is a hurricane, so we are planning for that. And here's the latest as of 10 o'clock. The pressure's down to 988, but it's looking a little ragged. I'll be honest with you. It is not a storm that looks like it's going to rapidly intensify right now. Overall, the center, it's fairly broad in nature. It's looking a little ragged. It's still battling some dry air, and the hurricane hunters are in there. Now, it has started to turn northeast. So after jogging northwest, slowing down a little bit, it is now moving northeast, and that will be its path all the way up until landfall. As I mentioned, the hurricane hunters are in there, and I have noticed that the pressure, it's not dropping very quickly. Their first pass was at 988. Their second pass was about 988 millibars as well. So we're not seeing this thing rapidly deepen. I was just looking at our high-resolution models, though, and many of them do show this thing steadily increasing in intensity as we go through today and into tonight. So hopefully it won't be anything too fast. Hopefully this thing just remains a Category 1 storm, but there is an off chance that maybe it jumps up to a Category 2 later tomorrow morning before it makes landfall. So while you don't see a Category 2 in the forecast track, if you look into the description they type out, and they type out these paragraphs, they do mention that this could still briefly get to around a Category 2 before landfall. Landfall is still expected to be later tomorrow afternoon, with impacts being felt throughout the afternoon and into tomorrow evening. And then it is moving. Jay Grimes was just talking about there that this thing will be moving on through, so it's not going to stall out in the region. But that track, it has us all on the east side, and that means impacts. Hurricane warnings are currently in effect for the Bayou parishes and Lower Jefferson Parish. We have a hurricane warning also for St. James Parish. Could these be extended? It is possible. Right now, that current track is center-lined right through St. Mary Parish, but I'm telling you, these high-resolution models, they don't like the idea of this going to the north. They like the idea of this thing coming across, right across our area, and that is certainly a possibility. We're going to have much more coverage on our storm alerts here. We're talking about storm surge values. We'll go over that track more. We'll talk about how much rain we get. That's all coming up here afternoon. Brandon.
As Payton mentioned, we've got a lot more to bring to you. Crews stationed throughout southeast Louisiana. Quick 2-minute break. We're back live right here at noon as we continue to track Francine.
An important message for America.